Welcome, Shahid. What is digital diplomacy?
Well, digital diplomacy is the idea of using the internet and all these rapidly evolving social media tools to try to increase the engagement that the US government has with peoples around the world. And I was specifically brought on to utilize those media tools with respect to engaging with young Muslims around the world, which, as we know, Muslims make up a quarter of humanity, and young Muslims, being under 30, are 60% of that group of people. And it's really one of the most wired groups of people in the world. And so it just makes sense to try to engage with them at that level on those mediums.
So digital diplomacy is only Muslim specific, or this department has some, other targets as well?
Well, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has made 21st century statecraft a cornerstone of her tenure here. And digital diplomacy really applies across the board. But we're making a very specific effort to within our office to reach out to young Muslims, because this is a very important group of people. Their voices matter. We want to make sure their voices aren't sidelined. These are the people from whom next generation leadership is going to come within Muslim communities around the world that are in really rapid transformation. I mean, there's technological transformation, religious transformation, cultural transformation, political transformation, and these youngsters are really caught in the middle of that. And we want to make sure that they navigate that process and come out the other end as positive as possible.
So what's the purpose of the US government? I mean, of course, I understand they want the betterment of the Muslim youth or youth at large. But what do they get out of it in terms of some political change, like Arab Spring? Was that a factor as well, in formulating this policy?
I think at the end of the day, we want to create a good relationship with these people, because they're going to assume mantles of leadership in the next 10, 20 years. And like we're seeing in the Arab Spring, this is a generation of people that they don't want to wait a whole generation to exert their political rights. They want it now. They want to take control of their lives and their destinies. And we want to be there with them, having a communication, having a conversation with them. But the other important thing is that the American Muslim experience has been a very unique experience and something that all people can be proud of. And we want to share that with people. And we want to create relationships with American Muslims and Muslim communities around the world, because I think that can be a very fruitful partnership.
You said American Muslim experience has been very unique.
Yes.
Why and how?
Well, there's a couple reasons. One is that if you look at the statistics regarding Muslims in America, it's really one of the most well-off demographics. It's a very well-educated demographic, and it's also one of the most diverse demographics. I mean, frankly, it's harder to find a more diverse group of Muslims outside of the Hajj than the American Muslim landscape. And this is a group of people that, despite the challenges of the last 10 years since 9/11, has found itself in really great positions in media, politics, business, government, in cultural circles within America, and are doing quite well for themselves.
Very diverse, very educated, very well off. But you also hear stories about the Muslim community in America, being radicalized,
Yes.
Extremism, and then you hear stories coming from Europe.
Right.
So how do you compare these two continents in terms of Muslim evolution, and how do you contrast, between what we hear in the media
Yes.
and what you just said?
No, absolutely. And Europe in particular has some great challenges. I was just there last week working on issues of Muslim integration in Europe. And it's always interesting to compare and contrast the Muslim experience in Europe and the Muslim experience in America. America is a land of immigrants, and it's fairly easy for people to come here and become truly American, culturally and politically. It's much more challenging and difficult to do that in a European context. And when you feel like you're left out, when you feel like you don't have a stake, that can be alienating. That can create feelings of tension and, unfortunately, in some cases, radicalization. So we think that the Muslim American community is fairly resilient. When you look at the cases of radicalization within this community in the last 10 years, you're really talking about a handful in what is widely assumed to be between 2.5 to 5 million Muslims in this country. That's a pretty good track record. And it's something that I think we can help export some of those good lessons to other people around the world in terms of how to create an environment where Muslims can be properly integrated.
Shahid, you've been very active on the other side before you joined the government. You were an activist, you were a journalist, you started a very successful website in California when I was running a newspaper in Los Angeles,
Yes.
Pakistan Link.
Right, of course.
And so, I mean, how do you see this integration in terms of politics and in terms of people coming together as a bloc, as a voting bloc? Do you see that happening in America?
Well, this is a very unique time because this generation of Muslims that grew up along with me, I mean, I was born and raised here, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in a community that really established a very strong American identity, that we were told not to look overseas for our guidance, but to look here at home, and to try to understand that we have a role to play here to help improve this society. And that's really shaped a lot of my work. I mean, in the last 20 years, I've been involved in various local and national Muslim organizations, whether it's youth development or, as you say, the media. I mean, you and I first met because we were both working in the media space. And in the last 10 years, after 9/11, that's where that was one of the primary places where I was working. I was trying to create narratives where Muslim voices could be in the general media because I felt that our voices weren't being heard. Now I've now transitioned from that role into a government role, but I think the mission is the same: is that let's hear Muslim voices, let's let them be included in part of the larger conversation, and together let's come up with mutually beneficial solutions to the issues that plague us.
Shahid, one of the challenges here for a Muslim family in America when they raise their kids is to have a balance between being a good Muslim family, but at the same time be mainstream American.
Right.
And you seem to strike that good balance. You are, and as I understand, looking at your work, you're an observant Muslim, but at the same time you have done so well in the mainstream American society, not just for yourself, but for your family as well as your friends.
Thank you.
So how do you see, this challenge? And again, I want to quote this Zabiha.com
Yes.
that you started in 1999,
Yes.
a long time ago.
Yes.
And one of the, actually the largest,
Yes.
halal food or
Yes.
website in the world.
Yes.
A reference website. So what's your advice for outside this country and inside this country for these families? How do they strike this balance?
Well, personally for me, I think my Muslim identity has given me a lot of strength. There's a lot of there's a lot we can draw on, right? And I think that if we draw on it in a certain way, we can be of benefit not just to our own community but to the community at large. And I've always tried to look for ways to work in the public sphere in ways that I think everyone can appreciate. Because I have actually half or maybe even more than half of my friends are not Muslim, but they continue to be proud of the work that I do because they see a benefit, frankly. And I think the more that Muslims in this country can help make their neighbors safer, that's a benefit for everybody. And so why am I in government? I'm in government to help heal some of those divides, to try to make this country a safer place, to try to build stronger relationships between this country and Muslim communities around the world. And I think my faith informs all of that, frankly.
Despite what you say, there is
Yeah.
still a lot of Islamophobia, quote unquote.
Yes.
And there is still resentment against Muslim communities
Of
across
course.
the country. How do you see it?
Well, I mean, it is a challenge, and we're always going to see those kinds of things. There's always going to be people that resent inclusion, that resent societies that allow Muslims to be a part of that society. But we have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, for every Terry Jones that you see, there are a dozen or more others that come to our side and stand with us.
Terry Jones, the pastor who wanted to burn the Quran.
Exactly. I wish people could see the photo of the Dearborn Mosque where 900 faith leaders of every different faith stood together hand in hand as a statement against what Terry Jones is doing, saying that we believe that our Muslim neighbors have every right to be here alongside with us. And that's also a lesson for Muslims as well, is that Muslims have to understand that they have a role too to protect other people's rights and to get into that square to defend it when other people are persecuted.
Another point that I want you to, shed light on and just share your views. See, other religious communities, they're pretty much homogenous. I mean, you look at the Jewish community, they are pretty much homogenous. They have one single center of gravity for themselves. But you look at the Muslim community, it's very diverse.
Absolutely.
And diverse opinions and totally different centers of gravity, so to speak.
Yes.
And they just come from different lands, different languages, cultures. So I'm sure it does, serve a purpose. But don't you think it's very challenging?
It is, but there's opportunities in that. I mean, if Muslims in America can appreciate the diversity amongst themselves, whether you're African American and you've been here for hundreds of years, or you're a recent immigrant from Egypt, you're still part of that same community. But you can learn to appreciate the differences. I mean, we have Sunnis, we have Shias, Sufis, all different kinds of people. If we can appreciate that, that actually puts us in a really good position to appreciate the larger diversity in our country and also to reach out to our neighbors overseas. I think Muslim Americans can interface and interact with Muslims around the world and say, there's a beauty in diversity. We see it in the Hajj, for example, when all these people come from different backgrounds, but they all wear that same cloth and they're part of the same community. I think that's what we have to share. And I'm trying actually in my work here at the State Department, trying to tap into young dynamic Muslim Americans and having them be kind of unofficial ambassadors around the world to help be role models for young Muslims, to help generate new leadership. And transfer some of these great skills that we've learned here, the spirit of entrepreneurship, this optimism, and transfer it to these young people around the world.
You travel a lot around the world. You've been to Pakistan?
I've been to Pakistan many times, actually. Haven't been there recently, but we've just launched one of our chapters, our leadership chapters in Pakistan last month. I sent the playwright Wajahat Ali actually to go and do the trainings for us, and he had a wonderful time. And I hope that's not the last time that we go from our office.
Anything you want to share with the audiences in Pakistan about your work?
People give Pakistan a hard time, and I know that. I see that in the media. And the thing that I tell people when people ask me about Pakistan is that I've never seen a country with so much raw human capital. I mean, the talent, the enthusiasm, the optimism, the energy that I see where people are building flourishing businesses, even in the wake of such instability, is amazing. I can only imagine how much this country would progress if stability were to come into play. And I would like to think that the work that I do and the work that my colleagues here at the State Department are doing hopefully will try to get us to that place. I think we all want to see that.
Shahid Amanullah, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely.